Hey guys, in this video, we are going to look at the 12-bar blues chord progression, which is a really, really popular pattern in music. You hear about it all the time. We're going to see how it's played, but more importantly, we're also going to see why it sounds so good. We're going to dive into the music theory behind the 12-bar blues to see what all the fuss is about. And there's some good reason why it sounds so good. So let's just jump straight in to the 12-bar blues. This is the pattern as it's typically depicted using Roman numerals. And the reason it's called the 12-bar blues, let's break that down. Bars is another term for measures. In music, the beat, the regular pattern of the beat, is typically broken into 4-beat units. And those 4-beat units or measures are also called bars. And so each of these boxes in this diagram represents a measure or a bar. And if you count them, there's 12 in total. So this is the 12-bar blues. And the blues part of 12-bar blues is because this chord progression is really popular in blues music. And blues music was big when rock and roll also developed. So the 12-bar blues shows up not only in the blues, but in rock music, in country music, and all sorts of different genres. And the pattern is a major 1 chord repeated 4 times. And then you have a 4 chord for a couple of bars. And then the 1 chord again for 2 measures. And you have the 5 chord, a 4 chord, a 1 chord, and a 5 chord. And then you repeat. After the 5 chord, you come back to the 1. So let's hear what that actually sounds like. On the piano, for example, if we play in the key of C, we start on a C chord as the 1, play that 4 times, and then up to 2 measures of 4, the F chord, back to C for 2 measures, and then we're going to come to 5, and then it wants to go back and repeat that pattern again, going back to C, and then you repeat it over and over again. So that's basically the 12-bar blues. And if you've heard it before, you've heard it 1,000 times. It's a really popular, visceral, really appealing chord progression that sounds so great. Now, we just played it in C, but let's look at that diagram again with C as the focal point, as the tonic. So instead of looking at it with Roman numerals only, if we use the color as a kind of X-ray vision to see deeper into the pattern here, we have 4 measures or 4 bars of C, followed by 2 measures of F, then again 2 measures of C, a G chord, a G measure, F, C, and then G before it repeats back to play C again. This is the 12-bar blues. And you can see from these root notes, with each of these shapes representing the root note of the chord. So the C major chord is represented by a red square. F is a purple-red circle. Again, C is a red square. G is a red-orange circle. F again, and then C, and then G. You can see that all of these chords are related, and we'll get into that as we look at the circle of fifths as a lens to see the 12-bar blues. But what we have here is a progression of chords 1, 4, and 5. So instead of using the letter names for chords, C, F, and G in this case, in the key of C, we have a 1 chord repeated 4 times, the C chord. Then the F major chord is the major 4, then C major, major 1 again, 5 chord, that G chord, then F, C, and G again before repeating to C again. Now on a piano keyboard, if we take the C major scale, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, it's a really nice pattern. And if we build 3 of the chords, or focus on 3 of the chords built on some of those notes in that pattern, we have the C major chord, C major, C, E, and G, then F major, F, A, and C, this chord right there, the major 4 chord, and then we have the major 5 chord, G, B, and D is the 5 chord. So together, 1, 4, and 5 are the foundational chords in this progression. So again, that's C major 4 times, and then we come up to F major twice, back to C major twice, and then we play a G major, F major, C major, G major, and then we repeat back into the pattern, playing that as many times as you want to make a whole song. It's the 12-bar blues, but it's like building blocks. Those 12 bars, that segment of chords is just repeated again and again to make a whole song. That happens all the time. You've heard so many different classics like Blue Suede Shoes, rock and roll, pretty much every song by Little Richard lots of songs are in the 12-bar blues pattern. So what is it about these chords that are so appealing? Why do they sound good together? Let's look at the circle of fifths, which will give us some insight into what's going on here. So in the key of C, focusing on C as the 1 chord, in the circle of fifths, all of these chords within the inner ring are major chords. All of these chords within the middle ring are minor chords, and then all of these chords around the perimeter are diminished chords. So the 12-bar blues includes only major chords, and in this case, in the key of C, C is 1, F is 4, and G is 5. So what's going on here is really, it's just these 3 chords. And major chords are especially consonant. They sound really nice. And chords that are right next to each other are really harmonically related in the circle of fifths. So basically, the 12-bar blues is just staying within a really tight range of harmonic space, focusing on 3 major chords that are really close neighbors. They're really harmonically related. In this case, C, F, and G, which you can see with the colors. It's red, purple red, and red orange. Those colors emphasize the fact that those 3 chords are very closely related. So the circle of fifths shows that, wow, we're just focusing on a very narrow, tight range of chords. And because they're so closely related, they already sound really good together. And that's why so many songs, so many melodies can riff on the 12-bar blues, because it just sounds so good. It like taps right into our brain, and we have these nice harmonies that flow so well together and sound great to our ears. Now, while the circle of fifths gives us some insight, we can see within this pattern why these chords sound good, because they're so closely related. Let's zoom in with our music theory microscope into another pattern called the circle of thirds, which gives us even more insight into what's going on here with this chord progression. Now, this is the circle of thirds, and all it is it's a circle of intervals, in this case, the C major scale, arranged in a pattern of thirds, major third and minor third intervals. C, E, and G make the major 1 chord, C major. E, G, and B make the minor 3 chord, E minor. G, B, and D together make the G major chord, the major 5. And so on. All of these chords together in 3-note groups make all of the triads or chords within the key of C. So that is the circle of thirds. That's why it's called the circle of thirds. Now, if we treat each of these shapes, each of these notes, the root note of each chord as the chord itself, we start at 1. This is our little starting point, that dot. We go from C to F, or from major 1 to major 4. That's our first move. And then we go back to C, back to major 1. And then we go up to 5. The 5 chord is G major. Back to the 4 chord, F, and then to the major 1 again. And then we repeat back to the 5 before really coming back to the 1 to repeat it again. So that's C, and then we come up to F, back to C, G, F, C, G, and then we come back to C to repeat the pattern again. But again, we're just playing select chords from the key of C in this case, C major, so C, F, and G. Now, we're starting on C in this example, but we could play this same pattern, the 12-bar blues, in any key. So instead of starting on C, let's say, for example, that we start on A. You can see it's the same pattern of whole steps and half steps that forms the underlying A major scale. So it's A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And the 3 chords that we're going to use in this case are again, the 1, 4, 5. So it's A major, D major, and E major are the chords that we're going to play in the key of A. So in a grid pattern, again, it's just 12 bars, 12 measures, 4 measures of A major, the major 1, 2 measures of D major, the major 4, come back to A major, and then go through E, the 5, D, the 4, A, the 1, E, the 5, and then we're going to again repeat it back to the 1 again. So it's back to A again. It's the 12-bar blues. Now, typically people will play these chords in different inversions, meaning different permutations and fingerings of those chords to smooth out the movement from one chord to the next. But the idea is the same. We're playing chords 1, 4, and 5 in a special pattern of the 12-bar blues. And in the key of A, again, it's just 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1, 5, repeated back to the 1 again, over and over. And again, looking at the circle of fifths with A at the top as the central point here, the orange-yellow chord, and then orange and yellow flanking it on either side, or D major and E major. These three chords in the key of A, 1, 4, and 5, are harmonically related because they're tightly packed within this nice consonant area of the major chords within the circle of fifths. That is why it sounds so good in the key of A as well, because the same pattern, the same harmonic relationships exist from one key to the next. And in the circle of thirds with A as the one chord, as the tonic here, we can play A to D, back to A, up to E, the 5 chord, back to D, the 4 chord, over to A, the 1 chord, E, and then repeat back to 1 again to play the 12-bar blues. So the 12-bar blues is typically depicted as Roman numerals, but there's so much more to it. And with the color, you can see that there is a special relationship between the chords in any given key. The 1, 4, and 5 are harmonically related. And then further with the circle of fifths, you can see that these chords are closely related harmonically within the circle of fifths. Within the circle of thirds, you can see the harmonic movement more closely, that there's special movement from the 1 chord to the 4 chord to the 5 chord, that there's a lot of motion between these harmonies, but really it's the same underlying pattern of Roman numerals, because the Roman numerals are just generic labels that are universal that you can apply to any key. The colors, though, show that those Roman numerals are indeed universal, as are the harmonies that the colors show. So it's almost like songs that are written in the circle of fifths are kind of cheating, almost in a way, because they're drawing on chords that sound so good together, that are so compatible, that you almost can't go wrong. So if you're just getting into songwriting and you're trying to come up with a song that might sound good, instead of getting fancy with a bunch of minor chords, diminished chords, extended chords, and all that, try out just the 1, 4, and 5, even with this specific pattern of the 12-bar blues, and see if you can come up with something good. I almost guarantee you can. And a ton of other people have too. Over time, they're still coming up with excellent melodies that ride on the same underlying pattern of 1, 4, 5, 12-bar blues. Definitely check it out. I hope this made sense. And in the comments, please add your favorite songs that are written in the 12-bar blues. Are there any that are better than others? I have my own favorites. I wonder if they're the same as yours. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.